What if you could get paid for posting? Wouldn't that be great? Well, there's a whole system in place now, an internet of value called blockchain. It is this and so much more. With us today is Michael Taggart, a leader in blockchain technology. We could listen to Michael talk all day and it wouldn't even put a dent in everything he knows about this. Plus, he's a great communicator and an evangelist for blockchain. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So great to have you. So let's begin with you. Tell us about yourself and your involvement with blockchain.
Well, I got involved with learning about Bitcoin in 2012, and then sometime in 2013, I became heavily invested in Bitcoin. I bought quite a substantial size of it before it really shot up. And then during that time, I started trading it around and doing a few things. And right around April 2014, I was in Austin, Texas, and I met Stan Larimer and his son Dan Larimer. And that moment on, I was pretty much a big proponent of what the blockchain could actually do. They opened my eyes to what the actual technology can do rather than just, the value of Bitcoin going up and making me money. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to work directly with them because of my background and stuff like that. And we went ahead and founded a couple of companies. Cryptonomex is one of those companies, which is a custom blockchain development company. I went ahead after that and founded Remittio along with Stan, which is a kind of a remittance service for cryptocurrency users to be able to send their cryptocurrency directly to any bank account or any debit card anywhere in the world. Quickly, easily, without any fees. Also worked with them to launch out BitShares before it had even launched.
Of course.
So I got a lot of involvement within their aspect of their companies as well as some of the blockchain stuff prior to that too.
So before you got involved at that level, you were just an interested investor. You said, hey, Bitcoin looks good. Were you a seasoned investor at that point, or you're just like, hey, why don't we try this?
Well, that's an interesting story too. So I happened to be sitting in St. Martin. It was March of 2013, and a friend of mine, he's known in the blockchain community as Max Wright, was sitting there at a table talking to us, and he said, I want to talk to you guys about something called Bitcoin. And he started explaining what it was, and he said, but instead of explaining it to you, let me just show you something real quick. So he took $20 worth of Bitcoin and he sent it to a wallet that I created right then. And everybody else at the table, he sent a $20 in Bitcoin to them. And then we woke up the next day and that $20 was worth $30.
Wow.
Right? And I thought, that's
that
interesting.
That got your attention?
Yeah, a little bit, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Next day it was 40. Next day it was 50. And
wow.
Right? And I thought to myself, well, self, you know third grade math. And, and so if you put $100,000 into that, it'll probably be $200,000 tomorrow, right? So,
and you did.
So like any non-seasoned investor who'd never bought any stocks or anything in his life, I went in and put a bunch of money down on Bitcoin, and my friends said that you are absolutely insane. And turned out I made the right decision.
Wow,
Right.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
So you were in the right place at the right time on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
Right? Probably more, but 2 that I've heard about so far.
Right.
And so where were you in Austin when you met Stan and his son Daniel?
I was at a Bitcoin conference that some folks were throwing out here.
It was so new then.
It was very new, and I'd already been trading quite a bit. I developed some trading software in mid-2013, late 2013 for myself, and then I ended up selling it to other folks because they were interested in it. I wanted to develop the trading software so I didn't have to wake up in the middle of the night every hour to check out what China was up to and whether I should buy or sell or anything like that. And so I allowed the trading software to do that for me. When I came out to Austin, I was out with Max and his now wife and a couple of my other friends. And when we met Stan and his son Dan, we did interviews with them. And while we were there, again, they opened my mind. Daniel Larimer opened my mind up to all of the possibilities and potential of what a blockchain could actually do. And at that moment on, I pretty much decided that second that that's what I wanted to do.
And how long was that conversation? I'm just curious. Was that like a 2-day thing to learn it or like a 30-minute? How long to grok it?
We went to a dinner and basically ended up there for about 3-4 hours, just talking. And they were fascinated with what it was that me and my friends do, which is a lot of digital marketing and advertising. They were fascinated with how that worked and what it was we did and how we were able to generate such large sums of money in sales and stuff like that. And we were equally as fascinated with what the blockchain could do potentially.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like the unlikely disciple. Have you heard those stories where you're just like in the right place at the right time, but hardly unlikely at all? I mean, you knew what you were looking at and you had the foresight to see that, and it was in alignment with what you were doing. So that's incredible.
I think so, and it was an odd experience for me in that just the opening up of that. I never had any experience in economics or finance or fintech or anything like that, but I've always been a disruptive type of person. I've noticed different types of industries, different types of technologies in the past where I've noticed them ahead of the curve, gotten into it, or I have established myself in that market or that industry prior to it exploding. And so, right place, right time sort of thing. And when I saw blockchain, I realized that moment, when I realized the possibility and potential of it, that this is the most disruptive technology I've ever seen. And that includes the advent of the internet, any of that.
So tell us what we need to know about blockchain. Why we need to know about it, and then we'll get into what it is, because I know it's too huge, we don't have 4 hours.
Right.
But why do I need to know?
Well, the thing about it is that you probably in 10 years won't know that you're using blockchain technology on a lot of different aspects of your life. Everything from maybe medical records that you're using at the doctor's office, all the way to the websites that you surf on, the mobile apps that you're using on your phone, most of the banking that you do.
It's a whole new, is it a whole new internet? Kind of.
In a way, it's a whole new, what I want to say, collaborative. I call it a collaborative economy when we're talking about finance, but it's a whole collaborative socio-economic thing that's being created, and it's really interesting what we can do with it, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. In terms of blockchain, though, what is it? It's a distributed ledger that you can't really cheat. It's something that is cross-checked over and over and over again by multiple nodes or multiple players or participants within that consensus algorithm. Now, all those are big words and stuff like that. So really what it is, it's a way to keep everything fair without having to worry about knowing about the other person that you may be doing any business or dealings with. So I can maybe not know who you are, or maybe not even trust you very much, but we can enter into an agreement and ensure that the software and the technology fulfills upon that agreement and that nobody can cheat it.
I like that. Yeah, so it's like a extremely neutral accounting system, whereas of course we know banks and other third parties are not. So that makes a lot of sense. We talked a lot about that in our first part of the series. Okay, so blockchain. So it's this thing that's going to be pervasive in everything from the social aspects, which we'll get into the thing about the posting, and the economic side. So this is the technology that's funding BitShares and all the coins being made thereof. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it also has other coins that are out there. There's Ethereum and the Bitcoins and all that sort of stuff too. Those are all based on blockchain. They're slightly different types of consensus algorithms, but overall they're all blockchain based.
Consensus reality is this new world. So we're all agreeing to all agree that we're going to let the computers be neutral, and then all of our transactions will be pure and true and solid, and that there's no one participating other than our intentional efforts.
Right, and there's no bad actor that's looking out for their own self-interest before anybody else. And it's not wrong to look out for your own self-interest, it's wrong to take from others while you're doing it. So the software can ensure that that doesn't happen. Or, I mean, if the two people agree to a lopsided agreement, then, and they're two people who want to agree with it, then that's fine. They're grown adults and individuals. However, it's when systemic, what's the word I want to use? I guess it's when it's systemic in the abuse and systemic in the way that they take advantage of people. And I'll throw banks under the bus for a minute,
Go right ahead.
Right. It's that they're always looking out for their bottom line, their shareholders, and not the people that they serve.
And the people they serve just expect it.
Right.
Just the way it gets served. Yeah.
They're so used to it.
So you talked about a disruptive aspect of this. At what stage of disruption is blockchain?
Well, the good news is that you haven't missed the boat yet. I've seen a lot of people, I've got my Facebook feed's just full of people freaking out, you know, oh, I missed the boat. Or,
on Bitcoin.
Right, on Bitcoin.
Wait, I think we all feel that way.
Right. And everybody saying,
not
oh,
you.
well, you know, this, you know, this is over. Oh well, you know, I missed the train. No, you didn't. Actually, we're still in the innovation stage, early innovation stage, and maybe some early adoption stage. But I'll tell you right now, I mean, and I speak about this all the time. I can walk down the street, and I would say 97 out of 100 people don't really know what Bitcoin is. Or if they maybe had heard about it, they say, oh, I think I heard about it once. Right, and that's it. They have
97% of the people, you think? Wow.
So maybe 3% kind of know what it is.
So we're very beginning of the disruption stage. I think it was on one of your speeches you talked about the 3 different stages of disruption. First one being the...
like innovators, or people that are actually creating, and you've got some early adopters that actually see what those innovators are doing. I always joke around, and I'm like, I always say, like, you know, if you want to get rich, just watch what the nerds are doing, because they're doing it 10, 15 years before mainstream adoption comes. Same thing that happened with the internet. I watched that. We're lucky in that we actually got to see a world before the internet, while it was being created, and then now a world where our children have no idea what the world was like previous to that.
Can't even imagine.
Right. I have a son that's 19 years old, and he has no idea what a world is without having the internet, which is really odd, right? But being able to see that happen, I saw the internet even in the late 80s, early 90s, what it was starting to become, and I already knew at that moment I should get involved, and I should know how to, you know, web design, do some coding, things like that. So I went ahead and started doing that ahead of time.
Smart.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so back to the disruptive stages. So we're not even close to the part where the critics come in and criticize it, because people don't know enough about it to criticize it.
Right.
And then the third stage being when the masses say, hey, everybody, how can I get myself some of that, or, you know.
Well, when grandma, you know, understands blockchain, that's when I'm going to cash out. Right, pretty much. But what I will say is
depends on who's grandma.
Well, yeah, right. But I would say that the big thing with the, we went through the innovators, and then you said the critics. There are a lot of critics out there, not as many as there's going to be soon. However, there's a lot of people out there that are just still stuck in the paradigm of the way things have always been, the linear thought process. And that's all they're stuck on. It's always been this way. I know financial planners and people that are within the finance industry,
100%.
Bankers and stuff like that, and none of them understand this. But what they do say is they just repeat the same garbage over and over again. They have no idea what the technology can do. They can say things like, well, you know, it's anonymous and people can fund terrorism and stuff with it.
That's right. It got a bad rap for that.
It is. It's not anonymous, though. It's actually, you know, what I say, it's a forensic accountant's dream. It's because they're able to track everything on such a granular layer that, honestly, fiat paper currency is more untraceable and funds more terrorism than anything
trace
a digital currency. Absolutely. Yelling about terrorism and money laundering and stuff like that gets you pretty far, because as soon as most people hear it, they just assume that you're guilty and they just write you off. Your technology, what it is you're doing, or anything like that, when it's really not the case. So you have critics who are uninformed, don't understand the technology, and they're the loud people about it right now. When all they really need to do is they should inform themselves, and they would probably maybe change their arguments or not have one at all.
Good point. Okay, so I think it's a really good point for everyone to know that, you know, this is like the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. So if there's a big curve right here, we're just like right at the very beginning.
We're barely coming up.
Barely coming up. So A, that means it's a good time to invest. B, good on you wanting to learn about this, right?
Absolutely. Because
it is the way that things are going to go. And I can understand now that the entire infrastructure of what blockchain is, if that's a good word, that's how everything's going to be structured on a just like almost infinite scale that can do everything in a neutral way, in a pure, true, self-regulating way that doesn't need to be checked.
Absolutely.
And then it takes out the middleman and the banks and all that. So that's solid. That's solid, but I can see how a lot of people are going to say, well, wait, you can't, well, who is going to be the banker? And you're like, no, there is no banker.
You're the banker.
Well, who's going to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting out of that mindset of control, that's a big one.
It's a tough one, and again, it's a linear mindset. We're all so used to it that thinking outside of that, I hate the word thinking outside of the box, or the phrase, right? But when you think outside that box and you open yourself to the possibilities, that's when things change for you. Your paradigm shifts. But if you're stuck in that the entire time, in the impossibilities, well, that's impossible. I don't believe in impossibilities. In fact, I believe that any impossibility is just a chance to prove the possibility of it.
What are some of the most important applications of blockchain?
Depends on what you find to be important. You know, I believe that financial technology is a hugely important thing. Most people, or some people would say that it isn't, right? And because it involves money, and maybe, oh, I don't care about money and stuff like that. Well, financial technology and being able to free people from an economic standpoint does a lot of other things as a cascading effect.
And changes the universe.
Right. It allows people to self-actualize, which then allows them to think outside of their paradigm, think outside of their linear thinking, maybe actually educate themselves a little bit more than what they had before, pull themselves out of a situation that, or a level of poverty that they may be in, or being able to give that gift to their children. All those things are hugely important in financial technology. I don't really care much about money. It's a means to an end, it's a tool for me, but I do understand that you need to have it in the world that we live in right now. Maybe it'll be different in some years, and that would be great. But in the world that we live in right now, you have to have it. And in order to have it, to have that self-actualization, in order to be able to have the autonomy and the freedom. Man is most free when they have the ability to have options. And when you have no options, you are not free. So I think financial technology is a huge aspect. Medical records, which could save millions and millions and millions of people every single year through drug interactions, through prescription processes, through actual medical records of a person. Instead, I mean, how many people have gone to a dentist or a chiropractor or a doctor where you've previously had x-rays and they say, oh, well, I need to order them from them, and they get to send them in the mail, and then they never come, so they have to do some more x-rays, which you have to pay for, suffer the radiation, and all those other things, right? And then you have a doctor who maybe has no idea of your personal history whatsoever, of all these other things that have happened to you in your life, so they can diagnose you. Diagnose means lack of knowledge, by the way. Oh. They can diagnose you and try to figure out through a process of elimination what the problem might be, or they could have your full medical records in front of them and be able to make a more detailed idea or get a diagnosis.
So the information storage alone raises the entire health system.
Absolutely, and could save people's lives, quite a few people's lives. So those are two major industries right there that you can go in effect right now. Another one would be just content creators, artists, producers, anybody who creates any sort of content, whether it's writing a book, taking pictures, creating music, film and art, doesn't really matter. Those folks right now are usually in the industries that they're in, are usually subservient to somebody else, record labels and such. And those labels pretty much, they like to think they have a symbiotic relationship with them, but it's really not. They're pretty much using them to take a majority of the value from that artist and give them just a tiny bit of that artist's value to scrape by in order to figure out. And there's other ways to do this, and we'll definitely discuss that in more depth.
Yeah, I want to get into that. So that takes out the agents and suffering artists. So you're your own agent, your own distribution system, and your own. Okay, so yeah,
and you can finance yourself.
That's going to be a huge application.
Absolutely,
especially for the crowd we're talking to today. So we kind of see how it will change our lives in a lot of ways, whether we know what it is or it isn't. It's already changing our lives. Let's move now into some of the information systems it will change, such as the content posting. And somebody who's a writer. Let's just take someone who writes books.
Right.
How could that change their life?
Well, you know, you have to go and you have to get an editor to take a look at your stuff, and you got to get a publishing house to agree to it, and then usually there's minimum orders and things like that.
Even if you self-publish, it's a big hassle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, and I've self-published, not books, but other things, other items and information and stuff like that. And there's a cost involved to it, and a lot of times you have to front-run those costs, or you've got these people out there that are causing you to jump through a bunch of hoops, and at the end of the day, again, you're getting paid a small fraction of what your content that you produce through yourself and through all of your hard work and everything that has brought you up until that point in your life to be able to produce that, which is, I mean, that's an investment in yourself, and you're getting a small fraction payout on that. Really not fair, right?
It's so not fair. In fact, you know, this whole series is being sponsored by the Conscious Media Festival, and those are content creators. And our first year, last year, We talked a lot about monetization. There's so many of us that are driven from a soul level to create conscious content. Do we get paid for it all? Usually not. Is there so much created that just gets poorly distributed or not acknowledged or certainly not paid for? It's a huge thing.
Or suppressed.
Or suppressed. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a panel on this, and of course we'd love for you to come and join us to talk about this, because what a message to all the content creators, the Conscious Media Festival tribe. Hey, we can get paid for posting, and let's walk through that, because we'll talk about Steemit in a minute, mm-hmm. which you were involved with creating, I believe.
Well, they've used the graphene blockchain that we created with Cryptonomex to then create Steemit, and Daniel Larimer actually went over there to do a few things. Number one, it's really interesting. I actually had a lot of conversations with Daniel, Stan, and some of the other team a year or two prior to the creation of Steemit, talking about how we could use a blockchain to create social media platforms, website analytics, which now people are starting to use blockchain for analytics purposes. We've already now we've got almost a year and a half old social media platform run entirely on the blockchain. The entire website, all that stuff is blockchain based, which is the first one of its kind in the world, Steemit. Right?
Oh, it is Steemit.
It is Steemit. So those two things right there, right? Steemit's a very interesting animal.
And by the way, it's spelled STEEMIT.com if you want to look at it, mm-hmm. because we'll try and walk you through how to post something on there.
Yeah, it's actually really easy to do.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah, I actually did post in 2 minutes earlier when you were doing an earlier segment.
Wow.
Particularly, and just posted pictures of a few things around here while that was happening. So simply enough, it's just like going to Reddit or Facebook or mm-hmm. any of those other social media platforms. Usually people go there, they post on those platforms, and then Facebook takes all of that stuff, and then they basically take your content that you're creating, and then they advertise to you, your friends, and everybody else. They own that content for the most part, and you just gave it up for free. And they monetized it, and they're monetizing you and all of the data, and every single word that you wrote on it, they're putting into a database.
Golly, that's...
If there's a cell phone in the room right now, Facebook is listening to us. You don't even have to surf to a website or go look at the actual product or go Google it or anything like that. You can mention it around your phone. In the room, and the phone could be in the room. And if you've got Facebook installed on that phone, they can hear it, and they will start serving you ads based upon your conversation. Here's what's even scarier. There's people who work in fields like social work, medical, and otherwise, right? They do home visits. When you do a home visit, your cell phone is in proximity to another person's cell phone, okay? And once you're in proximity, geolocated proximity to somebody else's cell phone enough times, Facebook says, oh, you might want to know this person, or they suggest them as a friend.
Yes.
In an industry where you need to be relatively anonymous because, a parole officer could put somebody in jail, or,
yes.
It could really affect somebody's life or something like that. And all of a sudden, Facebook is slinging your information around to everybody in the room or everybody that's in that area. That could be big problems. The reason I mention that is because these companies are sitting here using every single person that's coming in there.
We're clueless.
Clueless, and it's a take mentality.
Not
They're
totally.
taking everything from us and not giving us anything in return. They're giving us a free platform to post dog pics on, and pictures of our garden, and pictures of our dinner, and talking about things like that. That's what they're providing, and in return, they are making hundreds of billions of dollars off of it. The thing about it is that as Facebook is doing that sort of stuff, all these other sites that are out there, again, it's the mentality of business and corporate a lot in this world that we've been seeing, and it's a take mentality.
That's what I was going to. Also, Regina Meredith is doing we're doing a whole thing in Sedona mm-hmm. on the Givers Unite mm-hmm. against this whole take world. Mm-hmm. So it's like she's doing more of a spiritual approach and a meditation to switching people over to that, which is a giant shift over, because we're just like, we're trained to be the takers because mm-hmm. we've been taught by the takers. We're run by the takers.
Right. And so you in turn take.
Yeah.
Right? But there's a different way. Now, what if you could go to a website and post those same items, but then instead of Facebook monetizing it or that site monetizing it and paying, taking money from the advertisers and paying this and that, what if that site paid you for the content? Because you are helping that business.
That's what we want to do. We're doing that from here on out.
Well, and you're helping that business by providing them the content that they need in order to attract viewers, to attract page views. Every single website that's out there, their main goal when they have content on it is just to get a page view, right? So they can either pixel you, get more data, advertise to you. That's pretty much it. So alternatively, you can go to these places, you can post.
Steam it,
right?
yes. So you make a post, just like on Facebook, you write it in.
And there's Steam It, Yow, and there's a couple of other sites that are all based off of our graphene blockchain. Some of them have taken Steam It and forked it, which just means they've taken Steam It, cloned it, and then started customizing it for their own purposes. Like there's
Is that an open source technology?
It is. We open sourced everything because we wanted to make sure Pandora's box stayed open, right? Because no matter what you do to us or anybody else, anybody can clone it at any time and keep on going with it.
Nice.
And that the reasoning behind that was just that. We want to make sure it propagated, and we want to make sure there's nothing that could really stop it, because this is true freedom, gives people options, and at the end of the day, I'd like to see everybody exercising those options as much as possible. So you've got these sites that are taking this, but instead you can go to a site like Steam It, post on there, and with your content, with your art, with what you're doing, you can make money from the site. The site's essentially paying you to produce the content for them. And the other people that are on the site will vote your content up. It's very similar to Reddit in that, or I guess likes on Facebook. The more likes you get on Facebook, the more visible your stuff is.
And then you get how do you get paid?
Right, so how do you get paid? Well, the network pays you percentages. People who have content on the network, I'm sorry, people who will comment and people who will curate the content will essentially pool the money together on those posts. So let's say that there's a person who makes a post and nobody finds it valuable. They don't really make any money. They got their post out there. Same thing that would have happened on Facebook, except for your data is still not being sold to the highest bidder, right? So already better. Well, but what if you go in there and you make $5 off of it? Does anybody here make $5 off their Facebook post right now?
No.
Not usually, unless they're running them to a sales funnel and doing all this other crazy stuff. But the post itself isn't making them any money. This post over here can make you $5, plus you can run them to the sales funnel. So there you go. Again, still superior. Or you can go on there, and I've got friends who've made anywhere from $5, $10, $20, even $40,000 on one single post. Yeah, on one single post.
What was that post about?
$40,000 post was one that was more BitShare centric, or one that was more coding centric, because he was talking about
lots of information.
Lots of information, and it was somebody that folks in the community know, like, and trust. So when he posts things, right? Knowing, liking, and trusting.
Do you want to say who it was?
His name's Fabian. His code name on there is Xerox. And he's one of our lead developers for the company now.
That's inspirational.
It is.
And so how did he get a check in the mail? Did he get a PayPal? How was he paid?
He's paid in digital currency in Steam. Right?
See, so it's a coin.
Steam has a coin, yeah.
Is that under the BitShares family of coins, or different?
It's a little different. It's actually on its own blockchain. What they did is they cloned our graphene blockchain, they forked it, and then they started coding off of that. So it's its own currency.
It's kind of come together now.
Right? But it can be traded on the BitShares network, which is okay.
Oh, of course, they're all interchangeable.
Right, we're interchangeable, and we're working more towards interchanging all types of digital currencies within our blockchain. Hopefully, we'll be working on that and done with it sometime early next year.
This is like the opposite of roadblocks. Like with any kind of banking system, getting a loan, doing banking, whatever, it's roadblock. This is like, hey, no roadblock, come on through here. Hey, come on through here. We'll help. It's really amazing.
Banks used to speed up business. 2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago now, right?
Because you couldn't carry a big sack of gold. Well, you could, but it'd be tough to, and it was insecure, and people could come rob you and take your gold and stuff like that. Kind of difficult to do. So I can understand why people wanted to bank 2,000 years ago using that process. However, I still don't use a horse and a buggy, right? I don't have stone wheels that I'm trying to, ride around or push around stuff on, and I don't live in a hut somewhere, right? I have adapted to technology, right? And that's what I'm saying, is that there's so many ways to use the technology that we're giving to the world right now. And I would like to see more people just looking to understand it outside of how can I make money with this?
It's true, but listen, it's like the Wizard of Oz. All these little babies waking up. It's like, first, let us trust something that we're not going to get screwed out of. Second, let us go to the next level. You know what I mean? So it's kind of baby steps along the way.
And that's absolutely right. I got involved. Why? Because the money aspect of it. So I can't really begrudge them that.
It kind of gets you in.
It got me interested enough to take a second look. And that's also why I created Remittio, which is a company that does the kind of remittance thing. Because if people put their money into a digital currency, but then they have 4 or 5 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month to try to get it out, they're less apt to use it, they're less apt to trust it.
Totally.
They're gonna move on, right? So if I have a solid off-ramp for them to be able to trust, test out for a couple of dollars, deposit it, okay, that works. Now I have trust that the system I'm using and the digital currencies, the assets that I'm storing in this format can be liquefied or used in a way that I need to if I need to. Not everybody takes Bitcoin right now. Not everybody takes BitShares or the Hero or the BitUSDs that we have.
I see more and more of those.
Right? But there's more and more as we go.
Yeah.
Because every single person is, as they come along, starts to know, like, and trust it, or start to be more comfortable with it and get it inside their sphere of comfort.
And when I see it now, I like that company more. I like, oh, I just kind of feel like they have more value. And I want to do business with them, even if I'm not trading in Bitcoin.
And some people may do it for a marketing ploy, which some companies did early on.
That's a good idea.
But now, not so much. Now it's actually functional and it's usable. And I think some companies and some of the smart people running these companies are starting to figure out that this is something that they can use. This is something that they can be very happy with using because they can reduce fees. Right, just from a monetary standpoint, reduce fees, reduce chargebacks, add more to their bottom line. For instance, Amazon, I mean, they barely make any money, if that, right? Maybe 1% or 0.5% is what they make on their profit, if that. And usually they were running at a loss for many years.
Amazon?
Amazon.
I didn't know that.
Amazon ran at a loss for many years so they could gain more market share, more market share. And it was a very smart move by Jeff Bezos. However,
it was or wasn't?
It was, because look at where they're at now. However, if they would institute something, and I'm surprised that Amazon hasn't done this yet, if they instituted their own currency or coin, they would be able to allay some of those costs.
Oh my God.
It'd be absolutely crazy. What if they just doubled their bottom line from a 0.5% to 1%?
How come they have not jumped on that? Maybe soon.
Call me, Jeff. That's what I'd have to say. Hey, call me.
Can we give them your phone number right now? What is it? 409? That's incredible.
Right.
Oh, I could go on about Amazon. I live here in Austin, where they just bought Whole Foods.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Which is probably, I see it, they just want a distribution center for all of their instantaneous
Correct.
deliveries. Is that
Absolutely.
what that is?
Absolutely.
Because it seemed like it's either they're going to have buyer's remorse over paying so much money, or they got to get a big plan of distribution centers.
That's what they've been doing for the last few years quietly. They've been working in major metropolitan areas to put up distribution centers so they can get the product out to people faster, or allow people to come pick up the product.
Yeah.
Smart.
Smart. It is smart.
Yeah. It'd be smarter to start using digital currencies, though.
Well, people are going to get into this, and there's not. It's like, where's the no?
Right.
It's like, where's the roadblock? Where's the no? Where's the non-win situation? You can't. It's hard to find.
It is. It's that the technology is still relatively new. A lot of it's built by engineers, which are, unfortunately, no offense to engineers, but customer experience is not usually synonymous with the way an engineer designs something. That's why they usually have to have a UI or UX engineer come in there and make it palatable for mainstream people or regular people, because they don't think the same way that the engineers do, right? So there's one hurdle right now.
Is that education?
Education, and also just
That's a big one.
the actual experience of the user, which I've been working on quite a bit from my background in digital advertising and marketing. Because I've sold millions of dollars in products and services to people.
Oh, so make it easy to buy the BitShares.
Make it easy to
buy the coin.
Make it easy to convert. Make
Sovereign
it easy to
Hero.
store it.
Yes.
Make it easy to move it around. And make it easy to understand. Or take away all of the things that they need to educate themselves on, the technology of it, and just be able to test it out and use it a couple of times. Once they do, they'll see how easy it is to use. They'll see the options that they have, which again leads to more freedom.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, so in this whole new world of blockchain and cryptocurrency, there's a bunch of new language I'm seeing that I hear thrown around. And I made a list from hearing some of y'all's talks, and I just want to bring them up. And one was calling everything a zero friction transaction. And that just means like, hey, you're not held up at the bank for 2 weeks.
Right, because the banks used to facilitate faster transactions instead of carrying all that gold. But now they close, what is it, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, right? And then they're closed the rest of the day, closed on the weekends, closed
3-day
on holidays,
weekends.
stuff like that. I have merchant accounts. I accept money from my customers to buy things from me, and sometimes I don't see that money deposited in my account for a week or two.
They get you every which way.
And then they'll take reserves. So they'll take 10% of all the money that I have that comes in, and they hold it in reserve for 180 days. Then maybe they'll give me my money. Or maybe they have a bunch of collateral that they build up, and they just hold in there. I don't get any interest off of that. I don't get to spend any of my money. I don't get to leverage that to do anything. So yeah, that's called friction, right?
That's some friction.
Yeah.
Okay, zero friction transactions. There's a trustless system.
Trustless. So a lot of people say, well, what do you mean by trustless? That means that I can't trust it. That's what a lot of people seem to think. Yeah, a trustless system means that no matter whether I trust you, or anybody else, I know that an agreement that we make on the blockchain will be fulfilled by the software, and I don't have to worry about whether you renege it or not.
So another word would be neutral.
Right. Could be neutral.
Trustless, neutral. Distributed ledger. Did we talk about that yet?
Yeah, a little bit. And again, it's mostly a copy of the same ledger over and over again in multiple locations. So if somebody comes in there and tries to add a 1 where a 0 is supposed to be, everybody else sees it and says,
so it's a universal ledger.
Right. And it distributes it everywhere. So in case, a government or a system or anybody comes in there and let's say they shut down some nodes or they try to stop this or that, it's shot out so far. It's like a BitTorrent, same sort of thing. There's so many people on the torrent. The more people that are on the torrent, the stronger it is and the faster it is for everybody else. Same thing. The more and more that we all use this, the more and more that we all start adopting it, the more and more powerful we all are together.
It goes against physics, kind of, but it's like the system will break. No, it empowers the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really incredible.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
Is that at the heart of blockchain?
It is. It's the heart of the blockchain because it's the heart of the decentralization and the distribution of everything. And that's what it is. It's a collaborative consensus effort, whether it's through finance, whether it's through the medical record parts of it. Because your medical records can technically be on a blockchain and it's distributed to everybody else, but they don't have access to it because it's encrypted, right? Because it's encrypted at such a high level. So everybody's medical records in their world can all be on the same blockchain, but they're not accessible unless that person allows access to that particular record. But they're distributed everywhere at all times, so they can't be manipulated or changed. What if I could go in there and I could change your prescription to something that would kill you? Then you're dead next time around, right? Those things can happen, but not with blockchain.
Love that.
Right.
Okay, what about all the other, what about the ICO, ISO, ITO? Run through those real quick.
That's an interesting thing. If you have heard about blockchain or Bitcoin and you've been following it at all in the last 6 to 12 months, you would have heard some terms like ICO, which means initial coin offering, kind of similar to an IPO.
There you go.
Right? Now, IPOs are governed by, laws and regulations.
They're really hard to do.
They are. You got SEC laws and you got all these other laws out there. And so, or regulations, I should say. And those things, everybody's been trying to get around them. And so at first, people started doing ICOs, and they saw, I would imagine they did seek legal advice because we've seek legal advice in the past over this sort of thing. And they said, well, it's not an IPO, and since it's a coin and this, then you can do it. So you see these ICOs popping up, collecting $50 million, $100 million, $200 million. ICO's initial coin offering, you said ISO, which is something that we started coining. Stan, myself, and one of my partners, John Gotts at Stokens.co, basically created the term ISO, initial security offering, because the SEC in the recent month or two has started placing bulletins out stating that certain ICOs are actually, under the definition of the Howey test, are securities and are governed by regulations by securities, and that some of these people are buying unregistered securities and some people are selling them unregistered securities under the guise of ICO, which I personally don't really like. I think it's going to harm the industry if that continues. So we're doing some really, I would say, forward thinking in that the SEC is a government, or is not a government organization. It's actually a self-regulating organization. FINRA is a self-regulating organization. They're not government. And so if they can self-regulate, there's no reason that we can't self-regulate. So we started our own self-regulating organization.
That's fair enough.
Right? So we said, well, instead of us building this Ferrari and then handing the keys off to somebody who's going to go drive it into a wall because they don't understand the technology, what it can do, and they want to control it and use it for the same abusive techniques that they've been using in the past, I'm not going to give the keys to my Ferrari to somebody else. I want the keys to my Ferrari so I can drive it. And so we're going to take the power back. Well, actually, they haven't taken it from us yet. And this is the only time that we're ever really going to be able to insert ourselves in there firmly, because once they assert their power and anybody in our industry consents to it, it's over with. And so we need to take a kind of a stand right now and do that sort of thing. So we're working, really hard to make sure that we can stay compliant, protect consumers, do things in a legal, lawful way, but still not stymie or have any problems with stemming the innovation that's out there in the industry.
Yeah, that's a lot of troubleshooting.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm disruptive, remember?
That's right. I'm like, that looks like a really hard job.
Yeah, I like puzzles.
Like, is that a day, a week, or a month, or a year?
Yeah, probably the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's a lot of consensus taking among your peers too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, the industry in and of itself, a lot of the blockchain founders, creators, technical guys on there are backing what we're doing right now.
Well, good luck with that, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So we all have a vested interest now in keeping this industry alive.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Or the banks and governments are going to take it away from us, just like everything else, and just reassume the
Cancel
power.
clear.
Yeah.
Let's just deem this program not so vulnerable to that, because, I mean, it's got so many good features that I think you're just going to override all that.
Hope so.
You're going to steamroll over it.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Steamroll.
Okay, so here's a quote. Our real-time industrial-grade blockchain technology is currently processing twice as many transactions per day as all of Bitcoin. Is that true?
Yeah, no, it's not true. We're actually processing more transactions than the top 20 cryptocurrencies combined.
Whoa. Whoa.
We're processing, we can process right now 6 times what the NASDAQ does per second.
I had to upgrade that information from this morning.
Right.
That's some change right there.
We can process all the transactions Visa, MasterCard, and NASDAQ does per second right now at the same time.
Michael, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you at the Conscious Media Festival. I'm sure a lot of the viewers are going to want to meet you and talk to you about this. And we'd love to hear you walk us through the content creation and getting all of the people that create on board with this whole new system. Thank you so much.